You know what keeps most people stuck? It's not lack of opportunity. It's not bad luck. It's comfort. Simple as that. The moment you get too comfortable is the moment your life stops moving forward. I've watched it happen thousands of times. Good people settling for less because less didn't hurt as much. Ambitious dreams traded for predictable days. Remarkable lives exchanged for remarkable excuses. Here's what I know for sure. Comfort might feel good today, but it will cost you tomorrow. And that cost, it's your growth. It's your potential. It's everything you could become but won't if you stay where it's easy. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you grow, because growth is what gives life its flavor. Growth is what turns ordinary days into an extraordinary life. And comfort is just the pretty package that mediocrity comes wrapped in. So let's talk about this choice we all face every single day. The choice between what's comfortable and what causes growth. Because make no mistake, it is a choice. And it might be the most important choice you'll ever make. The most dangerous prison is the one with comfortable beds and 3 meals a day. Why? Because you stop trying to escape. That's what comfort does to your life. It convinces you that where you are is good enough, that striving for more isn't worth the trouble. I'm doing okay, people tell themselves. And okay becomes the enemy of exceptional. Think about the last time you truly grew. Was it comfortable? Of course not. Growth and comfort rarely share the same address. When you were learning to walk as a child, you fell countless times. Each time was uncomfortable. Each time hurt a little, but you got back up because something inside you knew that staying on the floor wasn't an option. What happened to that instinct? When did we start choosing the floor because getting up required effort? Eddie Comfort whispers attractive lies. You deserve a break. Why push yourself? You've done enough. And these whispers become louder when challenges appear. The irony is that the very challenges we avoid are the ones that would make us stronger, wiser, better. I've known people who stayed in dead-end jobs for 20 years because changing careers felt too uncomfortable. I've met talented individuals who never pursued their gifts because rejection felt too uncomfortable. I've seen marriages slowly die because honest conversations felt too uncomfortable. The cost of comfort is always growth, always. And here's another truth about comforts. It's temporary. Even if you choose comfort today, discomfort will find you eventually anyway. The difference is that when discomfort comes on its own terms, it rarely brings growth with it. It just brings pain. The discomfort you choose leads to growth. The discomfort that chooses you often leads to regret. Comfort zones aren't really about comfort at all. They're about fear. Fear dressed up as contentment. Fear masquerading as good enough. Ask yourself, what are you really protecting when you stay comfortable? Is it your energy, your time, or is it your ego? Is it your sense of who you think you are? The moment you understand that comfort is not your friend, but your limitation, everything changes. You stop seeing challenges as something to avoid and start seeing them as invitations to become more than you were yesterday. Growth isn't just a nice idea, it's the fundamental law of life. Look at nature. Anything that stops growing starts dying. There's no middle ground, no comfortable plateau where things can just stay the same. This principle applies to businesses, relationships, skills, and especially to you. If you're not growing, you're dying. Maybe not physically, but in all the ways that make life worth living. What happens to a tree that stops growing? It becomes vulnerable to disease, to storms, to changing conditions. It can't adapt because adaptation requires growth. People are no different. When you stop growing, you lose your ability to adapt to change. And in a world that's changing faster than ever before, that's a dangerous position. Growth is how you future-proof your life. It's how you ensure that no matter what tomorrow brings, you'll be ready for it. Not because you can predict the future, but because you become the kind of person who can handle whatever comes your way. I've met too many people in their 40s, 50s, or 60s who stopped growing decades ago. Their opinions were set in stone. Their skills hadn't been updated since they left school. Their worldview was as fixed as an old photograph. And do you know what happened to them? The world kept moving while they stood still. Eventually, The gap between where they were and where they needed to be became too large to cross. Don't let that be your story. Growth isn't just about success or achievement, although it does lead to both. Growth is about remaining alive in the deepest sense. It's about waking up each morning curious about what you might learn today, how you might improve, what you might accomplish. The most successful people I've ever met weren't necessarily the most talented or the most fortunate. They were the ones most committed to their own growth. They understood that their most valuable asset wasn't their current knowledge, but their capacity to learn. Not their existing skills, but their ability to develop new ones. Not who they were, but who they could become. Now here's the hard truth. Nobody can make you grow. Not your parents, not your boss, not your spouse, not me. Growth is always a personal responsibility. It's a choice you make and a commitment you keep to yourself. Personal responsibility is a rare commodity these days. So many people point fingers at circumstances, at other people, at systems, at anything except themselves. I would have achieved more if only it becomes the mantra of a life lived in reaction rather than in action. Assuming responsibility means accepting a simple truth. Your life is the result of your choices, not all your circumstances perhaps, but your response to those circumstances, and that response determines everything. I remember talking to a man who'd lost his business during an economic downturn. He was bitter, angry, convinced that forces beyond his control had ruined his life. Right next to him was another businessman who'd faced the same economic challenges. But this second man had adapted, pivoted, found opportunity in the crisis. Same external circumstances, completely different results. The difference: one took responsibility for his growth while the other expected comfort. When you take responsibility, you take back power. You move from victim to creator, from passenger to driver. Most people wait for growth opportunities to find them, but those committed to growth create those opportunities themselves. It's a question that changes everything. What could I be doing differently? Not what should others be doing differently? Not why is this happening to me? But what could I be doing differently? That's the question of someone taking responsibility for their growth. And when you ask that question honestly, comfort immediately becomes uncomfortable, because you know there are actions you could take, skills you could develop, habits you could change. The discomfort of growth becomes preferable to the discomfort of knowing you're settling for less than you could be. Taking responsibility also means admitting when you're choosing comfort over growth. No excuses, no justifications, just honest acknowledgement. I'm choosing the easy path right now. Sometimes that's okay. We all need periods of rest and consolidation. But make it a conscious choice, not a default setting. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the habit of growth-oriented thinking. When faced with any situation, ask, how can this help me grow? Even in difficulties, especially in difficulties, this question transforms obstacles into opportunities. You see, discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. And it might be the best teacher you'll ever have. Think about the most significant lessons you've learned in life. Did they come when everything was easy and comfortable? Or did they come through challenges, through struggles, through periods when you were stretched beyond what you thought were your limits? Discomfort is nature's growth hormone. It signals to your mind, your character, your skills that adaptation is required, that you need to become more to handle what's in front of you. The burn you feel when lifting weights, that's muscle fibers breaking down to rebuild stronger. The mental fatigue you feel when learning something new, that's your neural pathways reorganizing to accommodate new knowledge. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not within it. That edge is where new skills are forged, where character is built, where creativity sparks. Stay too far from that edge, and life becomes stagnant. But when you deliberately place yourself at that edge, not recklessly, but intentionally, that's when transformation begins. I've seen people transformed by difficulty in ways that comfort never could have accomplished. The entrepreneur who failed repeatedly before finding success. The artist who faced rejection after rejection before mastering their craft. The parent who encountered challenge after challenge in raising children, these difficulties weren't obstacles to their growth. They were the very means of their growth. Think of discomfort as information, not punishment. When you feel uncomfortable trying something new, that discomfort is simply telling you, you haven't mastered this yet. Not you can't do this, but you can't do this yet. That one word makes all the difference. But here's where most people go wrong. They avoid discomfort at all costs. They run from it. They distract themselves from it. They numb it. And in doing so, they rob themselves of their greatest teacher. What if instead of avoiding discomfort, you welcomed it? What if you saw it as a signpost pointing toward growth, this way to your better self? The sign reads, would you still turn away? I'm not suggesting you seek suffering for its own sake. That's not growth. That's masochism. I'm talking about purposeful discomfort, the kind that stretches you toward worthy goals, that builds capabilities you'll need for your future, that makes you more than you were before. The paradox of growth is that the temporary discomfort of developing yourself leads to the deep satisfaction of becoming yourself. The momentary pain of pushing past limitations creates the lasting pleasure of living without them. Remember, comfort is not happiness. They might feel similar in the moment, but they lead to very different destinations. Comfort without growth eventually leads to discontent, to that nagging sense that you're capable of more than you're demonstrating. True happiness comes not from avoiding challenges, but from overcoming them, not from protecting yourself from failure, but from proving to yourself that you can get back up when you fall. Discomfort, when approached with the right mindset, becomes not something to endure, but something to embrace. Not a burden, but an opportunity. Not your enemy, but your ally in creating the life you truly want. So how do you make growth a consistent part of your life? Through daily disciplines. The small actions that, performed consistently, lead to remarkable results. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. It is the accumulation of these daily choices that determines the difference between who you are and who you could be. The problem is that the disciplines of growth are rarely dramatic. They don't make for exciting stories. Nobody makes movies about the writer who sits down every morning for 2 hours to practice their craft, regardless of inspiration. Or about the entrepreneur who reads one business book each week, year after year. Or about the parent who has intentional conversations with their child every single day. These disciplines aren't flashy, but they work. They work because they compound. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of daily disciplines. The magic isn't in the individual action, but in the consistent repetition. Think about someone who reads just 10 pages of a good book every day. Nothing dramatic about that. But over a year, that's 3,650 pages. About 15 books. Over 5 years, that's 75 books. The knowledge, wisdom, and ideas gained from that simple discipline, practiced consistently, can completely transform someone's thinking, opportunities, and life. Or consider someone who saves just a small percentage of their income every month. It might not seem significant at first, but with the power of compound interest and the discipline of time, that modest habit can create financial freedom that their undisciplined peers will never experience. The daily disciplines of growth aren't complex, but they do require something that's becoming increasingly rare: sustained attention, the willingness to focus on one area of improvement for months or years, not just for a few excited days before moving on to the next shiny opportunity. Most people don't have discipline problems. They have priority problems. When growth becomes a genuine priority, discipline follows naturally. You don't have to force yourself to practice something you truly value. The question is, have you decided your growth is non-negotiable? The beauty of daily disciplines is that they work whether you feel like it or not. Emotions are fickle, changing with the weather, with your sleep quality, with 1,000 variables beyond your control. But disciplines can remain constant. On your best days and your worst days, the disciplines remain the same. And over time, it's this consistency that builds an extraordinary life. I've noticed that the most successful people rarely rely on motivation. They rely on systems, daily practices that move them forward regardless of how they feel that day. They've learned that waiting to feel like it is a recipe for inconsistency, and inconsistency is the enemy of growth. Start small. That's the secret to sustainable disciplines. Don't try to change everything at once. Choose one area where growth would make the biggest difference in your life and establish a small daily discipline around it. Make it so easy that you can't say no. Want to write more. Start with 1 paragraph a day. Want to improve your relationships? Begin with a 5-minute conversation of undivided attention. Want to get in shape? Start with 10 minutes of movement. Small disciplines, consistently applied, create the foundation for larger disciplines later. They build your discipline muscle, making it stronger for bigger challenges ahead. And here's the truth about disciplines that most people miss, as the discipline itself often becomes enjoyable over time. What starts as an effort eventually becomes a source of satisfaction, even identity. I'm the kind of person who reads every day becomes not just something you do, but part of who you are. The daily disciplines you choose, quite literally, create the person you become. They are the building blocks of your future self. Choose them wisely, practice them consistently, and watch as they transform not just your results, but your character. Of course, maintaining these disciplines is much easier when your environment supports your growth rather than sabotaging it. Your environment, especially the people in it, plays a crucial role in determining whether you'll choose growth or comfort. You've probably heard me say this before, but it bears repeating. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes, their behaviors, their expectations, all of these things shape you in ways you might not even realize. Are you surrounded by people who push themselves, who value growth, who set high standards? Or are you surrounded by those who make excuses, who settle for less, who are comfortable with mediocrity? Make no mistake, their choices are influencing yours. Growth-oriented people create a contagious energy. They're naturally curious, constantly learning, always pushing boundaries, their own and yours. When you're around them, growth feels normal, expected, excited. Upward-oriented people, on the other hand, subtly pull you toward their level. They might not do it intentionally, but their choices normalize settling for less than your best. I'm not suggesting you abandon friends or family who aren't focused on growth, but I am suggesting you be intentional about adding growth-oriented people to your life. Seek out mentors, join masterminds, find peers who are committed to becoming more than they are today. Their influence will be transformative. Your physical environment matters too. Is your home set up to make growth easy or difficult? Are books readily available, or are distractions more accessible? Is your workspace designed for productivity or comfort? These subtle environmental cues shape your daily choices more than you might think. The spaces you inhabit should reflect the person you want to become, not just the person you've been. When your environment makes growth the path of least resistance, you'll find yourself naturally making better choices. And don't underestimate the power of immersive environments. Workshops, seminars, retreats where growth is the explicit focus. These concentrated experiences can shift your perspective in days and ways that might otherwise take years. The right environment doesn't eliminate the need for personal discipline, but it does make discipline easier to maintain. It's like rowing with the current instead of against it. Both require effort, but one yields much greater results for the same amount of work. Creating a growth-oriented environment is itself an act of taking responsibility. You're acknowledging that external influences matter and then deliberately choosing which influences you'll allow in your life. This level of intentionality separates those who grow consistently from those who grow sporadically, if at all. Remember, your environment will never be neutral. It will either support your highest aspirations or subtly undermine them. Choose accordingly. One of the most powerful ways to escape comfort and embrace growth is through setting meaningful goals. Not just any goals, but goals that pull you forward, that create productive tension between where you are and where you want to be. A goal properly set is halfway reached. But most people don't know how to set goals that actually drive growth. They set goals that are either too small to inspire action or too vague to direct it. I want to do better is not a goal that will change your life. Effective goals create what I call magnificent obsession. That sense of direction and purpose that gets you out of bed in the morning and keeps you going when comfort tries to lure you back to mediocrity. These goals aren't just things you want. They're expressions of who you're becoming. The purpose of a goal isn't just to get the thing. The purpose is to become the person capable of getting the thing. That's where the real growth happens. The increased income, the improved relationship, the better health. These are wonderful results, but they're secondary to the person you become in pursuit of those results. Goals should scare you a little and excite you a lot. If your goals don't make you slightly uncomfortable, they're probably too small. They should require you to grow, to develop new skills, to become more than you currently are. Write your goals down. This simple act transforms vague wishes into concrete intentions. There's something powerful about seeing your aspirations in black and white. It makes them real, tangible, harder to ignore when comfort comes calling. Review your goals daily. This isn't just positive thinking. It's strategic reinforcement. It's programming your subconscious to recognize opportunities that align with your goals, to generate ideas that move you toward them, to maintain focus when distractions arise. Share your goals with someone who believes in you. Public commitment creates healthy accountability. When you know someone else is aware of your intentions, you're less likely to settle for comfort when the path gets challenging. Break your goals down into next actions. The gap between a grand vision and your current reality can be overwhelming. Bridge that gap with specific, concrete steps you can take today, this week, this month. Make growth practical, not just inspirational. Celebrate progress, not just achievement. Growth is a journey, not just a destination. Acknowledge the steps forward, learn from the setbacks, adjust your approach when needed. This ongoing process is where the real transformation happens. The beauty of goal setting is that it makes growth intentional rather than accidental. It gives direction to your daily disciplines, purpose to your discomfort, meaning to your efforts. Without clear goals, growth becomes random at best, stagnant at worst. And here's a truth about goals that many miss. The best goals aren't about escaping your current life, but about creating a better one. They're not driven by discontent, but by vision, not by what you're trying to avoid, but by what you're trying to create. The difference might seem subtle, but it's profound. Fear-based goals create temporary motivation, but long-term anxiety. Vision-based goals create sustainable energy and lasting fulfillment. Choose goals that pull you towards something meaningful, not just push you away from something uncomfortable. Of course, setting goals is one thing. Taking action despite fear is quite another. And make no mistake, growth will always trigger fear. Always. The question isn't whether you'll feel fear. It's whether you'll act anyway. Fear is the guardian of comfort zones. Its job is to keep you safe, to maintain the status quo, to prevent you from taking risks. And it's very, very good at its job. It will give you 1,000 reasonable sounding excuses why today isn't the right day to grow, why you should wait for better conditions, more certainty, clearer directions. But growth doesn't happen in the absence of fear. It happens in the presence of courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. It's feeling the trembling in your hands and moving forward anyway. It's hearing the doubts in your mind and refusing to be defined by them. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. But this gets the equation backward. Confidence is the result of action, not the prerequisite for it. You build confidence by doing things that scare you, not by waiting until you're no longer scared. Start before you feel ready. That's the secret of those who grow consistently, while others remain stuck. They understand that readiness is a myth, that perfect conditions never arrive. That clarity comes from engagement, not contemplation. Taking that first step is almost always the hardest. The resistance, the excuses, the distractions, they're never more powerful than before you begin. But once you start, once you're in motion, continuing becomes easier. The fear doesn't disappear, but its grip loosens. I've seen this pattern play out countless times. Someone hesitates for months or years to pursue a goal, convinced they aren't ready. When they finally take action, usually because the pain of not growing becomes greater than the fear of failure, they almost always say the same thing. Action has a clarity that thinking lacks. You can analyze and plan and prepare endlessly, but there are some lessons that only experience can teach. Some growth that only comes through doing. This doesn't mean you should act recklessly or without thought. But it does mean that at some point, analysis must give way to action. Planning must yield to performance. Preparation must lead to production. What's the worst that could reasonably happen if I take this growth-oriented action? Then ask, what's the cost of not taking it? What opportunities will I miss? What growth will I forfeit? What person will I fail to become? Almost always, the long-term cost of comfort exceeds the short-term cost of fear. The pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. When you truly understand this equation, taking action despite fear becomes not just possible, but necessary. Remember too, that action creates momentum, and momentum is a powerful force for growth. One courageous step leads to another, and another. Each action builds not just results, but resolve. Not just progress, but possibility. So what awaits you on the other side of comfort? What happens when you embrace growth as a way of life? The answer is simple but profound. I don't just mean rich financially, although that's often part of it. I mean rich in the fullest sense, abundant in experience, in capability, in contribution, in satisfaction. Rich in the things that make life worth living. A rich life is one where you know you're using your gifts, developing your potential, making your unique contribution, where you're becoming more today than you were yesterday, where comfort serves you rather than limits you. This rich life isn't something distant or unattainable. It's available right now through the choices you make today. When you choose growth over comfort, even in small ways, you're choosing the path to this richer existence. The truly successful, those who find lasting fulfillment, not just temporary pleasure, understand that life's richness comes not from protecting what you have, but from becoming what you could be. Not from gathering possessions, but from growing possibilities. Not from avoiding difficulties, but from developing the strength to overcome them. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop chasing comfort and start pursuing growth, you often end up with both. Not the shallow comfort of stagnation, but the deep comfort of knowing you're living true to your potential, the peace that comes not from avoiding challenges, but from knowing you can handle them. The satisfaction not of settling for less, but of becoming more. I've met people at the end of their lives who chose comfort over growth. They have very few regrets about the risks they took. Their regrets are almost always about the growth they avoided, the conversations they never had, the skills they never developed, the impact they never made, the person they never became. Don't that be your story? Choose growth while the choice is still fully yours to make. Choose it today in some small way that pushes back against comfort's gentle tyranny. Choose it tomorrow and the day after until choosing growth becomes not just what you do, but who you are. If there's one certainty in life, it's that you will become something. The only question is, what? Will you become more capable or more limited, more valuable or more dispensable, more alive or more numb? These outcomes aren't determined by chance or circumstance, but by choice. Your choice every day between comfort and growth. The distance between where you are and where you could be is shorter than you think. It's not measured in miles or years, but in decisions. Decisions to learn when it would be easier not to persist when it would be easier to quit, to face truth when it would be easier to hide, to take action when it would be easier to talk. These decisions aren't dramatic. They don't announce themselves with fanfare. They whisper rather than shout. But their cumulative effect is nothing less than the creation of your life. So I'll ask you one final question. What's one area where you've been choosing comfort over growth? And what's one action you could take today, right now, not someday, to begin changing that choice? Because here's what I know for certain. The moment you choose growth over comfort is the moment your life changes. Not instantly, not completely, but genuinely. That choice, made consistently, is the difference between a life of quiet regret and a life of authentic satisfaction. The growth you seek is waiting on the other side of comfort. The only question is, will you go there? Will you trade the certainty of what is for the possibility of what could be? Will you accept temporary discomfort for lasting transformation? I believe you will. I believe you already know, deep down, that you were made for more than comfort, that you have gifts to develop, contributions to make, a life to live that exceeds what comfort alone could ever provide. So choose growth, choose it today and tomorrow, and the day after that. Choose it when it's easy and especially when it's hard. Choose it not because it promises an easier life, but because it guarantees a fuller one. The world doesn't need more comfortable people. It needs more growing people. People who refuse to settle, who push boundaries, who demonstrate what's possible when human potential meets persistent efforts. Be one of those people. Start now. The rich life awaits.